Hello everybody, welcome back. Today I'm working on a Toro super recycler with a Briggs & Stratton 4.5 horsepower engine. I'm not sure if the engine has been swapped out on this or if somebody has taken this cover off of a yard machine and put on here. We've got a couple things going on. The pull start is stuck, won't pull out. However, flipping it up, you can turn the engine over by hand. So I don't believe the engine's locked up. I believe we got something going on up here in the recoil. The air cleaner's missing. I'm not worried about that yet. I want to see if the engine will run. Not sure if we have spark or not. It's been sitting for a while. You can see we've got some sort of algae stuff growing on here. It's even kind of growing on the spark plug. First thing we need to do is get this plastic cover off here and do some more inspecting. Okay, 2 Phillips head screws. Should lift her up. Okay. Yeah, it's just, it don't want to come out of there. Let's see what we've got. It appears to be empty. Carburetor feels really gummy. Yeah, I'll have to clean up this carburetor some for sure. First thing we need to do is figure out this recoil though and see if the engine and everything does spin over good, or if we've got something mechanically going on inside. Okay, there's 3 screws up here that hold the tank on. I'm going to go ahead and get them out. Okay, got our screws out. The only thing left kind of holding it on here is the fuel line. Okay, we got our fuel line off. There should be one here, 2 here, and then this dipstick has to come off. We'll go ahead and see what we've got. Some oil. It's at about the minimum mark. Don't look too bad though. Okay, we got all of our bolts out. This should pop right out. And then this should lift off here. Let's see what we've got. One of our pawls is broken off of this. And this is definitely froze. So, need to get into this and see what's going on. I believe this is bent. Okay, we got that off there and loose. It's definitely got compression. It feels like it's turning all right. I don't hear any unusual noises coming out of it. So I think that's good. Even with this one pawl broken off of here, if we can get this freed up, this should be okay. Okay, I got this soaked down in a PB blaster, and I'm just going to set it to the side for now and see if it'll free this up some to where I can get this off here and clean it up. Because as of right now, it does not want to move at all, and I don't want to break that plastic if I can help from it. Moving on, I'm going to go ahead and take this carburetor off here. and see what its condition is and get it cleaned up. Okay, set that to the side. This part has your primer bulb in it. And then there's a gasket that sits right here. Okay. 3/8 bolts. Little tap tap on this. Just come free right there. All right. Let's see what kind of nasty we got in here. Yeah, you can see the varnish in it. Quite dirty in there. Okay. Alright, we're going to crack our fuel bowl off and see what the condition is in here. There we go. Oh yeah. That's absolutely lovely. The inside of there. That pin seems to be pretty, it's had water in it. Sort of oxidizing the aluminum. It may be savable. It's hard to say. I'm going to work on cleaning it up and see how bad it is. But at this point, this might be need for replacement. Yeah, that's all aluminum oxide. It's in there pretty bad. Get as much of that out of there as I can. Start. The real question is this pin going to come out for the float? The needle is not moving. It's completely seized in its bore. I'm afraid these ears will snap if we try getting them out. I'm going to soak it first before I try. Maybe it'll help break loose some of that oxide. This ear is actually starting to rot away. Alright. It's definitely one of the worst carburetors I've seen in a while. Just going to put all the parts in there. Okay, I'll get this mess cleaned up. One thing I forgot to mention earlier is another problem with this is the drive is froze up on it. It took me a minute to get the bolts out. I did this off camera. Had to soak these in penetrating oil and work them back and forth for a few minutes before I was able to get them out. I'm going to clean those up and put anti-seize on them when I put them back in so they don't get froze up again. But this cable's froze up for sure. So what I'm going to try to do is get this cable to free up so we don't have to buy one. First I've got to get it off of the machine. Alright, to remove this cable, there's two little detents right here. That's got to be pushed in so you can pull the cable through. And then you can raise it up and unhook it. Up here we have a 7/16 nut that clamps down on the cable. Loosen that up a little bit. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is cut this coating that is on here to expose it like this. And this is how cables would have looked a long time ago before they started putting this coating on it. But this coating, the problem is with it, is it's very hard to lubricate the cable with it on here. And it holds moisture in. So you sit outside and stuff, moisture gets inside the cable and then it goes to the lowest point and this sits. So I want to strip all this black coating off here and soak this. Okay, I've already started a little bit, but I figured I'd show you in case you all got a froze cable. You just take a razor knife and you go down the length of it. Kind of tedious. You just go down the length of it and you can just peel this off. And you can already start to see where it's changing colors. Here, that's the rust. Down here's where it was holding moisture. Like I said, it takes a minute. I'm not going to bore you with all this. Okay, I finished getting our cable off. And this has got a lot of corrosion on it. But I will say, after working with it and messing with it a little bit, I have got it moving some. But we'll go ahead and soak this down in some penetrating oil. I think just moving it around like this got it freed up enough that it's moving. We'll soak it down. Now that coating's off here, that penetrating oil can get down into the in-between and lubricate this all up. And then in the future, if it starts getting sticky, it'd be easy to spray this down with lubrication. And two, it won't hold water no more. That's the problem with those fancy rubber coatings they put on it, is it causes them to hold water if they're left out. Alright, we're back. It's the next day. I let this soak overnight in carburetor cleaner. Took it out this morning before I left for work and soaked this down in PB Blaster. I just sprayed some more on it. I want to see if we can get this float pin out without breaking the ears. Oh, there we go. We'll get our float maybe out of there. I don't know how stuck in that needle's going to be. Problem is, you can't really get the float out of there without that coming up. Can't. It come up some. Oh, there we go. Yeah, that's looking pretty cruddy up in there. This might be an issue. It's ate through the wall here. We might have a problem with this one leaking. I'm going to see if I can get this carburetor cleaned up a little bit and see how bad it really is. Let's see if this will flow through. Yeah, that goes through about there. It flows through. So they're not plugged up. This carburetor's really corroded up. Alrighty, I'm gonna clean on this while and I'll get back with you. Okay, I scraped at this a little bit. I got it cleaned up a little bit. It's not perfect, but we're not gonna get it perfect. I do have a carb rebuild kit left over from another project. It looks like I've got all the pieces I need. So I've got a new bowl gasket here. I'm going to get this old one off. Go around and scrape all the stuck on gasket off. Okay, we've got our bowl gasket. Alright, another thing we have here is a new seat. Probably be a good idea to go ahead and replace that. That one's pretty dried up and shot. I got that out. I'm going to scrape out this bore real good. Hold on just a second. Okay, I got that cleaned out. I put a new seat in, and all I did to put the seat in is I found a drill bit the same size as the hole and pressed it into its spot. It's down in there and sitting nice and flush. I am going to, however, reuse the old needle. I cleaned it up. There doesn't appear to be anything wrong with that one. It is going in there nice and easy. Hang our needle on the float. We've got our pin. Dropped it. Well, if I can hang on to it, we'll be doing all right. It's trying to fall off on there. There we go. Put our pin back in. Okay. Tap, tap. All right. To check these, just blow into them with it upside down. Can't blow through. Can blow through. Pretty simple. Seems pretty good. Then we've got our bowl. That back on there. Alright. Let's see. This gasket, I don't think it's not the same as the one that was on there. I was hoping that it was. Ugh. Yeah, they're different gaskets. So, not much I can do with that. If this runs, we might invest in a rebuild kit. But until then, I think we're just going to leave this the way that it is and try to get by. Okay, I let this sit about 24 hours with PB Blaster on it. I was able to finally get this off. This is absolutely full of rust. This is plastic, but the rust come from the spring and the recoil. The spring is actually rusted through. I'm going to clean the spring up and probably cut the spring down here and then put another bend in it just to make it work. See how long and how much a new one would be. This is completely full of rust scale here. This is all rusted up. So I'm going to have to clean all this up real well before we can put it back together. I'm going to get a tray and get some rust remover and get this stuff cleaned up. Okay, I've got our rust remover here. I'm just going to throw our parts in it to soften the rust on them. Got a little brush here. I'm just gonna get this up on the recoil, get this off. I'll probably hit this with a coat of paint, try to keep it from getting worse. Since I'm here, might as well. This stuff usually works pretty fast. Okay, this is kind of a hack, but we're trying to get this engine running. The recoil spring, as I showed you earlier, is rotting through towards the end of it. It's got several rust holes throughout it, and it would break. It might have started the engine a few times, but it would eventually have broke. I took MAP gas torch, heated, cut it down to where I'm below all the rust holes, heated it up, and bent the end of it. If you try to bend these cold, they do break. This isn't a proper repair, but you can get your recoil working again for free by doing this. These springs are generally pretty cheap. I did look it up for this engine. I could get just the spring alone for about $5. But if you're either broke and you need to mow the yard, or you need to mow the yard and not wait for the spring to show up, this is one way to get it back up and running. Proper repair would be to put a spring in it, but we don't know what else the lawnmower needs yet, so we're doing this. Okay, to get these springs back in, you gotta roll them back up, which is kind of a tedious chore. This spring was soaked in rust remover, so it's dry. If these things are all lubricated and greasy, it seems like they're 10 times harder to do. But you gotta roll these things back up and get them smaller than what they're sitting into. And these go in one direction. You can't just put them in however. If you put it in backwards, you got to take it out and do this again. There's a groove this sits in right here. Just drop it in. Okay, that spring's in. Well, like I said, this isn't quite right, but this will work for a while. I'm going to spray the spring with a little PB blaster to keep it lubricated. Maybe even use some spray grease since this one's so rusty. Help it slide against itself better. If it doesn't break, it'll clean itself up. But where it's grabbing onto itself and it's so rusty, there's a good chance that the spring's going to break pretty soon. I did spray it with a little bit of PB Blaster and then added this spray grease. I don't normally recommend doing this. If you've got a nice clean spring, if you do add any lubricant, use something like PB Blaster lightly. Any kind of lubricant like this is just going to attract dirt and debris to collect in here. But I have a feeling that this spring isn't going to last, so chances of going back in here anyway are pretty high. Okay, I painted the recoil cover here. It's not perfect, but it'll work. I've got some bicycle grease here that is safe for like plastics and stuff. This is just bicycle bearing grease, and I'm just going to apply some on here. You don't want to use anything that will attack plastic or swell it. Because the rest of your recoil there is plastic. I'm going to put some down here at the bottom. Once again, normally I wouldn't grease this like this, but being that this is so rusted, it's just going to attract dirt and stuff under here. But to make sure that's going to work right, it turns pretty freely now, and our recoil is going to work. Okay, this rope is really rotten, and it's been broken, tied together before on this recoil. We're going to rewrap the recoil on this. You want to wind these up and then lock it somehow to where you can fish your rope through. Pretty simple. You want to get your rope and measure out your old rope so you can get a similar length. You want to go a little bit longer. You got your new rope. Feed the end through. You'll need a pick or something maybe to get it out. Tie a knot in it. You want to take a lighter and get the frayed ends in there and just pull it in. And there's just these two screws that sit in here. Okay, on this end, I've got this locked with a screwdriver where the ends line up. I'm going to go ahead and burn my end here. Okay. You just want to feed it through until you've got it out this side. Tie your knot. I went ahead and burnt that end, even though I'm going to cut it again, just to make it easier to pass through. Take a lighter. Okay. I'll pull my screwdriver here out, and that should feed the pull cord in. Okay. Alright, we're moving on to changing the oil on this and sharpening the blade. We've got a nice day today. This blade doesn't look like it's in too bad a condition. To get the drain plug out, you gotta take these two bolts off for this bracket here. And this bracket will come off. That's your belt guide. And then you can access the drain plug up here. Okay, we got the oil drained out. It had drained for about 20 minutes until it quit dripping. We've got some new oil here. Definitely going to be good for it. The oil that drained out of it had quite a bit of metal in it. Not a good sign. I don't know if the camera will pick it up. But you can kind of see the glittery gray to it. Really won't know how well the engine runs until we start it. But that's a good sign that it's not doing too well. I've already added the oil back into it. We're going to sharpen this blade on the mower. I've just got one of these stones here. This blade doesn't look that bad. I think this will clean it up all right. Okay, I'm servicing the drive wheels right now. I already did the other side. These are really rusty. No signs of grease on them in a while. There's a grease fitting right back here. A lot of people don't realize this is here. You're supposed to grease this, and grease will shoot in and lubricate all this gear and everything. But these are supposed to, they got a little keyway in here that was supposed to rock. The other side was stuck, so there was no way this drive wheel was ever going to engage. We're gonna take this side apart here and get it all cleaned up and lubricated. You got a keeper clip here. Get it off. Spring is next. Then you have a keyed washer. It's got a spot in it, sits in this groove. You got your gear right here. Then in here is this rocker keyway, and I'll show you what it's supposed to do. This one wasn't stuck in there as bad as the other side. There's this little plastic right here. Okay. You have this little plastic washer that this sits into. You'll see it's not a tight fit. It's made to where this can rock back and forth. When you hit the drive, this is supposed to twist this keyway to where it locks into these grooves on the wheels, which is also packed up with junk and gunk and other stuff. Take a little bit of grease, put on here. Put my screwdriver so I can kind of smear it in that groove. Get a little bit. Okay, we'll put our little O-ring type seal back in there. I'll wipe down this little plastic. Ring here. Get all the grit and stuff that's built up in it out. Take a little bit of grease, smear a bit on it. Okay. You get your little keyway thing lined up again, and this will rock this to where the wheels lock. Like that out. See? And free turn. And it locks depending on the position of that white ring. I guess when the axle starts to turn, it turns and then therefore locks the wheels. It's all got to be free and able to turn to do that. We can grease this back here. See the grease coming around it. I'm just going to put some grease up here on this gear. Okay. We got a plastic cover here. It's got some dirt in it. Not that it won't after you mow the yard again, but try to keep it as clean as possible, I guess. Alright, our part showed up. We needed the gasket that goes between the air breather here and the carburator, so the primer bulb will work. The owner was able to find the cover and got it to me. We've got a brand new air filter here for it. Go ahead and put that in there. I had to wait for these gaskets to show up. I was out of them. That's the part number. You can get these on Amazon. They come 10 to a pack. 10 bowl gaskets, 10 of the breather gaskets. These here are bad about warping. And even with a new gasket, they don't want to seal. The trick to them are, without replacing the assembly, is to take 2 of these gaskets and stack them up. Put 2 of them on here, make sure they're pressed down. Sure everything looks good. Okay, when reassembling, you got this breather hose that sticks out here. You got to make sure that that goes in there. Gonna press it on. I did replace the primer bulb. The primer bulb in this had a hole in it. Three bolts. Alright, we got it all together now. We're going to try to start it up and see how it does. I'm going to give it a few extra primes. Back on that. Alright, not too bad for a mower that was pulled from the weeds. Don't know exactly how long it's been sitting. Carburetor's in pretty bad shape still. We were able to make it work again. Probably we'll need some new parts here before too long, but don't have that much money into getting it up and running. And I think it'll probably make a good mower for a little while still. So, thanks for watching, guys. If you enjoyed this, please like and subscribe. Have a good one.